Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. This is the Punchestown Festival Day 3 preview, recording on Wednesday just after about 2 o'clock. So looking ahead to Day 3, we've done Day 1 and Day 2, so if you haven't seen those, do go back and watch those now. But I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm joined by two expert guests, not oddschecker's very own Andy Holding today, because he's busy getting the Guinness in over before a day's racing at Punchestown on course. But I am joined by two expert guests, racing broadcasters and journalists, Johnny Ward and Ed Quigley. Ed, I spoke to Johnny a couple of days ago about Punchestown. We got his thoughts. He's going to be there tomorrow. But what does this festival do for you? It obviously comes at the end of a pretty hard campaign, not just for the horses, but also for a couple of tipsters and journos too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I love it. I think it's a brilliant spectacle, but I tread very carefully, mainly for the aforementioned kind of end of season woes, as you say. You could have everything right for the horse, the ground, the trainer could be in flying form, jockey could be at the peak of his powers, but the horse has just had enough for the season. They've had enough. As simple as that. You're probably looking at even money for a lot of these horses to run to their true form. We've seen it to some extent throughout the week, haven't we? A few horses run on the face of it massively below par. You're not just talking a couple of lengths below par, but stones below their peak level rating. You say you've had horses on the go since October. And at some point, as we approach May now, they do just cry enough. So generally speaking, I try and avoid getting stuck into some of these short price favourites who, they've been to Cheltenham. They've sometimes been to Aintree, Fairyhouse. It's a glorified afterthought. And, not for me at those prices. But nonetheless, I love it. It's great fun. And I suppose what goes with it is you then naturally try and find a few outsiders you can sneak into the pack, which, you look at the history of this race, likes to follow the plan, Planet of Sound. I was going through the Punchestown Gold Cup. There's been all sorts of turn-ups in there throughout the years. And I suppose we saw a small shock, didn't we, yesterday with Mighty Potter at 20-1, kind of case in point. So all in all, I love the meeting, but I do tread very carefully from a punting point of view in comparison to, say, Cheltenham.
Thoughts on a couple of those kind of hot favourites, or just horses that have proven themselves to be quality over the past year or two, and both Sir Gerhard not showing his true self, and also I think we've got to mention Bob Olinger as well, who clearly things weren't necessarily right. Where would you stand on their future going forward, Ed?
Well, Sir Gerhard, that's now 2 times he's been to Punchestown Festival, twice I wouldn't say he ran a stinker last year, but it's 2 times he's been turned over. The insight of perhaps Mullins and Townend's worth a lot more than what I could offer. But, Willie Mullins has got this feeling, perhaps he said he's not sure he goes right-handed, and there's clearly something about Punchestown he doesn't quite like. Bit non-committal as to where they go further forward. He's not a spring chicken. He'll be, 8 if he ends up in an Arkle or a Turner's next season. I thought he could be a champion hurdle horse. I think they'll go back to the drawing board and have a think about things. Again, it was so far below form. I wouldn't take it on face value. So bit of head scratching with him going further forward. Bob Olinger, he's just not himself, is he? He swatted aside Capodanno earlier in the season. He's been beating 4 fences here, hasn't he, by him? He's just not sound. There's something not right. I'm sure they're going to go to get to the bottom of it. What I did find interesting was the fact they ran him. Because after Cheltenham, they said, he was laying behind. There was a little issue with his muscle. And I thought, right, you just give him the rest of the season off, a nice summer out at grass and come back again afresh next year. But they rolled the dice with him and, he bombed out. So, look, in a way, you put a line through it because it's clearly not his running. But I'm still not totally convinced he's a natural chaser. If he ended up in something like the Stayers Hurdle this time next year and they've sorted out all his kind of wellness issues, it wouldn't shock me. So, in regards to Sir Gerhard, it's too bad to be true. I don't think that's his running. In regards to Bob Olinger, I think they've got to get to the bottom. They've got to give him an MOT, find out the issue. Otherwise, no matter whether he jumps hurdles, fences, whatever he does, whatever trip, whatever ground, he's in danger of becoming, as Twitter likes to say, a Sam Crow Part 2, which I don't think none of us want to see. Because, the mighty Bob at his best is brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing how the Ballymore has turned into a bit of a graveyard for these horses. I know. I think owners are going to stop wanting to send their horses there if it carries on like this. Johnny, we mentioned kind of the bad and the ugly there, but let's talk about the good. A scintillating display from Energumene, especially over the second last through to seeing off a Chacun Pour Soi who looked in decent order.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ed in a while, but if I get married, I'd like the best man to describe me as a glorified afterthought in the speech. That would just sum it up. The glorified afterthoughts of Punchestown as well. what I find with Punchestown, what Ed was saying there, is that you get these horses who just run so below par, and then you get horses like Mighty Potter winning, who you can make a case for almost after the race, because so much went against him at Cheltenham. You're like, why was he 20-1? You know, you could definitely see him running in the frame, so on and so forth. But Energumene was brilliant, I thought. You know, there was that great moment between the last two where I think Jerry Hannon was probably making more of a race than it actually turned out to be. I think Paul Townend, maybe in hindsight, was very, very confident, and he sort of rode his body language after the second last, I think, testified to that. Elsewhere on the day, I mean, to me, it was more a kind of a story of disappointments. Sir Gerhard, I kind of forgave. I think they should stay hurling with him. And Bob Olinger, I'd say he's a breathing issue, because that was just the 2 runs like that back to back are very, very worrying. Going forward, I'd be worried about him full stop. And I suppose Party Central deserves a mention as well. You know, for a mare that's probably deemed a bit of a bridle horse, she's actually had a really profitable campaign, and she looked brilliant in the first. I thought that was a good ride by Davy Russell, 43 years old this year. But obviously the star of the show is Energumene, and I'm recording this, as you say, we're recording this on Wednesday, but the price of Allaho today is quite incredible, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely will do. By the time this goes out, the listener or the viewer will know exactly what's happened, so we won't waste too much time on that. Hopefully we can get this wrapped up so we can be watching it as well. But do subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can find all this preview content and plenty of podcast content as well. And so do download the oddschecker app now before we get into the race preview, so you can see the best odds that we'll be talking through, best place terms, always important at these big festivals, bookie offers, free bets, and the tipsters as well, even though Andy is staying on course and enjoying himself this week. We haven't given him the week off, and he will be filing his tips every morning before racing, so do download the app for that. And let's get into it. This is the Thursday preview, day 3 of the Punchestown Festival, with the caveat that I should mention that we don't know what's happened on day 2. So if there's any collateral form and bits and bobs like that, we won't be able to cover that. So hopefully things won't change too much. And in the opener, the handicap hurdle, we're going to be previewing any of the races that have prices. Gin Coco is the 9-2 favourite as it stands, ahead of Mount Brown at 13-2. Ideal Pal 13-2. Luke Short 8-1. Broomfield Hall 10-1. Walnut Beach Golf Marin both 11-1. 12-1 bar that. 28 runner handicap, Johnny, to start off. Easy, solve it.
Yeah, easy. I think Cafe Con Leche is interesting. He is going to love this ground, and he's back to a reasonable mark. But the horse I'm going to put forward here is Walnut Beach. I actually tipped this horse at Naas the last day. Sorry, 2 runs back. He ran on the flat since. He ran okay, but I wouldn't mind that too much. I tipped him at Naas in what was a grade 3. Now, he was sent off 50s, and he finished last, but he actually ran way better than that. If you watch him come to the second last, he was nearly one of the last horses off the bridle. He's only run off 118. He travels well in his races. He's quite lightly raced. He obviously won his maiden hurdle at Punchestown easily as well. Shane Fitzgerald is great value for £5. I think the one concern is if the ground will be soft enough for him, but there didn't seem to be any complaints on day 1 in terms of it being too fast. I'm sure they have it in good nick. I think he's comfortably better than that mark if the cars fall into place for him.
Walnut Beach, they're 11-1. Sky Bet already going 7 places, and they're 11-1 there. That's why it was important to look at the place terms. 7 places there, 11-1 for Walnut Beach. Johnny selection. Ed, how do you see this one going?
Can I skip this one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely no idea, to be honest with you. Load of unexposed sorts, loads of horses arriving in on the back of wins. I will be adding very little compared to Johnny's great insight.
Well, and as we always say, there's much rather put your hands up and admit there's nothing you want to put up than try and make a case for something that you wouldn't back with your own money. So yeah, absolutely skip the opener. You'll still be at the bar. On then to the 4:15, the handicap chase, where Grange Walk is the 11-4 favourite ahead of Mount Leinster at 7-2. Magic Days 6-1. Exit Pole 8-1. Rebel Gold 9s. Zarkiva also 9-1. 12-1 bar those. Ed, I'll give you first run here, having skipped the first, but you're welcome to skip the second as well.
You've thrown me a googly here, George, because I was massively going to go with my friend Ben Pauling's Irish Raider here, Global Citizen, who's not making the gig. So that has thrown me another googly. I'm an absolute fraud coming on this show. Also, I do just want to say, I do love your new wallpaper. You've put a lot of effort into things since we last saw you. So
I'm actually recording this from the oddschecker HQ from the offices, rather than I haven't turned my front room into some kind of cabin in the woods vibe. But yeah, and we'll come back to you in the next. Johnny, gonna lean on you here again.
Okay, so if you watch the race that Grange Walk fell in the last day, which Mount Leinster won, I'm 100% certain Mount Leinster's not the strongest finisher in the world. Grange Walk would have won. He was desperately unlucky. Now, his trainer, John Ryan, I almost never back his horses because, like, if you look at the likes of That's Life Boy, she's had, I think, 26 runs this season alone without having a single break. So he campaigns his horses in a way that is completely alien to pretty much everyone. So I find his horse a little bit hard to predict, but watch back the race the last day. He was running off 140. He's run off 141. If ever there were a winner without a penalty, he was certain to win the last day. And for me, he's a great chance here. All he has to do probably is reproduce that form and he should win, I think.
Reproduce that form and he should win, and he's currently 11-4 to do so. The one for Johnny in the second. On then to the the 450 we're skipping. We're skipping the 450.
Ed has a bet in the 450.
That was my bet.
Well, no. In that case, we don't have any prices. But Ed, tell us. It's across country. The 450 at Punchestown on Thursday. Give us your selection.
I really must be losing it if my first bet on the day is coming in the cross-country race. I mean, we've got
NSB.
I don't think I've had a bet in a cross-country race for about 2 years. But yeah, an NSB. But look, the one I've got very much top of the shortlist here would be the 11-year-old Never Russia Con for Jessica Harrington. Blows hot and cold, but at this track absolutely comes alive, including the banks, the cross-country, just generally has very good course form. I think it's run here 11 times, has won twice, has been placed on 4 other occasions. So clearly a track that brings out the best in him. 11 years young, but it's clearly been aimed at this for some time. And I just thought was the one to be with here. Sean O'Keefe on board. Again, no prices, as you say. But when I went through the race, came in number 1 on the top of my shortlist there, Never Russia Con.
Never Russia Con. And what kind of price would you be hoping for here?
I think probably getting double figures.
Okay.
I've kind of tissued in around about 11, 12 to 1, anything like that. I think you'll get a horse, as I say, on official figures, has a little bit to find with others, but I always think you can get a bit carried away with official figures in this type of test. It's more which horse suits the races, how should we say, idiosyncrasies, who really takes to it. And this horse, as I say, loves the track, loves the banks. As a bit defined on figures, but I think we'll probably outrun his odds. Yeah, if you can get anything 12 to 1 or bigger, I think he's a fair each way play. And again, check all your each way concessions because I'm sure there'll be a few bookmakers tripping over each other to get you to give away your money, shall we say? So Never Russia Con, an each way play for me in the 450.
Give away your money and hopefully get some back with Never Russia Con there. 5 places Sky Bet Go at the moment. I'm sure a couple of others will open up bigger when prices do come out. Johnny, anything to add there, or should we move on?
We can move on, yeah.
We can move on. On to the 525 then. And Ed, I'm not going to let you get away with saying you don't have a view in this one. We've got the Champion Stayers Hurdle, where Klassical Dream is the 13-8 favourite ahead of Cider Burley at 11-2. Paisley Park coming over at 7-1. The Devil's Coachman 8-1. Gentleman's Game 14-1. Ashtail Bob 14-1. Vanillier and Concertista also 14-1. Ed.
Yeah, I just disagree with this market totally. Anyone trust Klassical Dream at 6-4?
I'm amazed how short Klassical Dream is.
I mean, he seems to need an age between his races. Like, he looked absolutely mustard in this last year when he came back after 4 centuries off the track or whatever, and then he looked brilliant on his seasonal reappearance. I mean, he went out like a light in the Galmoy, and there was excuses about the race had come too quick and blah blah blah. And then again in the Stayers, I mean, if you stop the race coming to 2 out, I thought, whoa, wow, he's going to cart round and win half the track. And again, he's kind of hit the Cheltenham Hill, turned around and run back down it. He's short enough here for a horse who I just think he's got a lot of question marks about him. Yes, we know his very best form entitled to be this type of price, but not for me. I've got question marks about all these. Paisley Park's lovable, but is struggling to win these days. 10-year-old getting on a bit. Cider Burley, again, I can't believe what that horse did after running a lifeless race in the Pertemps and then turning up and beating Flooring Porter at Aintree. But again, can he back it up? Again, a lot of horses here are just so in and out. The Devil's Coachman, I'm not sure will run. Listening to Noel Mead, they said they're going to need an absolute deluge of rain for him to take his chance. All in all, this is a convoluted way of saying I've backed 2 outsiders in this. I've backed Concertista, returning to hurdles. I thought, she jumped like a snooker table in the Mayor's Chase at the Cheltenham Festival. She doesn't have masses to find on official figures here, and she obviously, with her mare's allowance, she's right in this. The trip is an unknown, but I don't think she's out of this at all, given the aforementioned question marks about those ahead of her. And I've had a few quid on Vanillier. for the Gavin Cromwell team. Again, another horse who, no matter what they try with him, he just cannot jump at the level needed to be successful over fences. We saw that in the National Hunt Chase. I actually backed him in National Hunt Chase, thinking going that yard slow and over that longer trip might just get him a bit more organised in the jumping department. But he still made upteen errors. And I mean, I watched the replay National Hunt Chase back earlier, and he's kind of still pitching in there, coming to 4 out, despite the amount of ground he was giving away at his fences. Look, he's clearly got a very good engine still. He's only 7. You know, he ran the rivals ragged in the Albert Bartlett, the Cheltenham Festival last year. I don't think he's a forlorn hope from... what I'm really hoping is the 8 will stay in here and that the Devil's Coachman does take his chance, personally, and the market doesn't cut up. But I think you could do a lot worse than back Vanillier and Concertista each way here. So I think there are massive holes to be picked in those at the top of the market, personally. So, I'll take my chance on the 2 rags.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the Devil's Coachman, if he does come out, then because we're post-final decks, it will be a quarter of the 4 rather than a fifth of 3 with just 8 in there at the moment. So do, have your each way bet fully in the knowledge that might be the case. But with Vanillier, 14-1, best price at the moment with Bet365. Concertista, the same price as well. And we heard both Andy and Rory Delagi in our Cheltenham preview saying that Concertista should not go chasing, should have stayed over hurdles, and we're certainly proven right on that run at Cheltenham on the day, back over hurdles here for Ed. Johnny, how do you see this?
This is incredible. I very rarely put up 2 horses in a race, and the fact that I'm putting up literally the exact 2. I mean, Richard Whiteley, it'd be like a countdown candidate showing Richard Whiteley the 9 that
shows the workings.
Unbelievable.
It's like when 2 MPs tweet exactly the same words at the same time.
No comment.
That's actually very believable. But so Classical Dream, he's a terribly vulnerable favourite. He obviously landed a gamble in this race last year. The last favourite to win this race is actually a dam of one of the horses running this week. That's Quavega. So that's 10 years ago, the last favourite. Again, this is a race that if I were a bookie, I'd be going far bigger the price. I'd be going at least 2-1 Classical Dream. He's ahead the ball of a horse. Fair enough, if he produces his best, he may well win. But there are a lot of ifs with him. He was very good in the race last year, but he was disappointing at Gorn. Did look very, very tricky at Cheltenham. I don't think Vanillier is going to jump a fence again. I think Gavin Cromwell will have given up on that. The only thing is he obviously has the reigning Stayers hurdle winner. Well, I don't think Vanillier jumps nearly well enough. He was okay at Cheltenham the last day, but as Ed says, he has an engine, and as much as he was a little bit disappointed at this race last year, he was brilliant in the Albert Bartlett, and on that performance he has a chance. Concertista, I'm not sure she'll get 3 miles, but I think she's going to be ridden very quietly to get to 3 miles, a bit like Classical Dream in the race last year. And as you say, the worry would be that the Devil's Coachman doesn't run, which will change the makeup of the race. But I wouldn't have a problem just backing the 2 of them in singles. You're getting 7s coupled or thereabouts.
You can back them as singles now and then wait for the day, and if they're all right running, then at least you can be kind of a bit more secure. But great to have a couple of 14-1 shots put up by both. Well, I mean, not bizarre, because you're both sharp, you both know what you're talking about, and you both got the same horses. Should always happen. Let's have the reverse forecast. Vanillier and Concertista, the 2 for the guys, both at 14.
Actually, on the reverse forecast as well. So remember myself and Andy put up 2 horses in the handicap hurdle yesterday. They were basically first and second turning in. I was like, here we go. One of them finished 6th, and the other one finished 6th last or something. I was like, that is. It was
the one that you put up, the Bromhead horse. I've never literally landed the last with a live chance, and then everything just came.
Held on for 5th by a short head if you paid the each way with the 5 places, but it was unbelievable. I don't know. It was a great Bears named the horse. It was a very interesting run, but that's Punchestown.
Yeah, absolutely. I should mention as well that Concertista is a bit of a sea of blue at the moment. That 14-1 is standout. As short as 17-2 elsewhere, and even Vanillier is 8-1 elsewhere. So this is a proper case of shopping around and getting the best price is the thing to do. Hopefully using oddschecker as well. On then to the 6 o'clock, the handicap hurdle, sassy yet classy. Doesn't sound too great in my middle class English, sadly, but sassy yet classy. 8-1 favourite ahead of City Chief, Max Charm, and the Bomber Liston, all at 9-1. Festival Decks at 11-1. Bugs Moran at 12-1. Have plenty of others at 12-1 as well. Panda Boy, Maze Runner, Limerick Lace, Sparkling Stars, A Great View, Johnny, I'll come to you first here. I'll put Ed out of his misery and let him scramble around and come up with the selection as you talk.
Yeah, you probably want about 12 each way places in this race. I did this race for the Racing Post on the spotlights, and I like to pride myself, rightly or wrongly, that I can do the job in a fairly expedient manner. This took me about 2 days. It was so difficult. I'm putting forward Festival Dex. I've backed this horse a few times. He's a bit of a bridle horse. The last day behind Capilano Bridge, that was a weird race at Fairyhouse. Capilano Bridge took it up from the front runner a long way out. Nothing got into it. Festival Dex didn't find a lot, but his run behind Max Charm the time before that, I think it gives him a reasonable chance. He's stepping up in trip as well. Obviously the yard's in sensational form. Small stakes race though.
Small stakes race. Festival Dex, the one there for Johnny at 11-1. With that is best price with 888 Sport, who are paying 6 places as well. Ed?
Yeah, well, I've actually tipped City Chief elsewhere for this, for Nicky Henderson coming over, Nico de Boinville on board. The caveat would be, though, I am a bit nervous about the ground. I mean, it was really deep when he won at Hereford. There was enough giving it last time out. You know, his sire, Soldier of Fortune, he absolutely loved a bit of mud on the flat. Look, he's still unexposed, so there's no real concrete evidence to say he won't go on ground, which, looking at the sunshine shining over the course, it's going to be pretty decent by the time they go to post. But look, he's totally unexposed. He's only 5. He's off a mark of 131. I liked his attitude last time out. You know, for a horse that was, as I say, not many miles on the clock, it could have still been a bit of a learning job, and I thought he could have got worried out of it. But when he was asked to go and win the race, he really did. It's scared. So a horse lightly raced. I put it this way, I'm convinced he'll be a lot better than 131. It's just in an ideal world, even if the ground, if it was proper chucking it down all morning, my confidence would be greatly enhanced. But there are a lot of horses in here, which, I don't think they've got any secrets on the handicapper. I would be shocked if City Chief was not better than 131, personally. It's just the ground, just tempering my enthusiasm for putting him up as a strong fancy.
Very warm as well today, Ed. It's like it's basically, I'd say it's a tough job for Punchestown to satisfy everyone, because this is, I mean, climate change is real, and it's warm for, I mean, it was -1 last night, I think, but it's warm today, and the ground is dried out a lot.
That's why you're sat in your suit, is
last night.
Exactly.
That's why. hot cup of tea, hot toddy, and he sat in his suit.
You know me too well.
Yeah.
City Chief 9-1 there, also with 888 Sport, best price there for Ed's selection. On then to the Barberstown Castle Novice Chase over 2 miles. 7 runners here. So again, quarter the 4 with pretty much all firms. Though one firm in Betfred are a 5th of 3, so do check that out. Gentleman to Me has been, the money horse here, in from 7-4 overnight to 5-4 best price now. Gabinaco 130, Blue Lord 5-1, Saint Sam 15-2, Horton Color 12-1, Curse of Bleem 20-1, and Mascada 66 is said.
Yeah, I'm with the jolly here. Been looking at the outsiders, but Gentleman to Me, just really going from strength to strength now, isn't he? I mean, look, again, I've said it, being almost hypocritical. End of the season, he had 5 starts so far this season. It could be a case of, one run too many after trying to back up that Aintree run, etc. But I would say he's been aggressively campaigning. He's not like he's been dining at the top table all season and been in some absolute real hard battles. And the way he just swatted aside Edwardstone at Aintree, I thought was quite taking. And I thought what was really interesting was Alan King and Tom Cannon's comments afterwards, because naturally everyone said, oh, well, clearly Edwardstone, ran flat after the Arkle. And Tom Cannon was kind of like, no, I think we've just been done. We bumped into one there. We've been done by one. And I just think that form is terrific. Blue Lord is a horse, so I just think has got a bloated reputation. I think he was really lucky to beat Riviere de Tel in the Irish Arkle. I think he got found out last time. You actually look at his chase form, he won 2 starts at 1-4 and 1-16 or whatever it was. I don't actually think he's done a great deal over fences, shall we say. And I wonder if Gabinaco would be served better by 2.5. And Saint Sam and Houghton Color seem to be horses you're making excuses for a little bit, I think it's fair to say. Process of elimination. I just think Gentleman to Me, he clearly really enjoys this ground. He's a horse with lots of form on a proper sound surface. And he pinged off that ground at Aintree. He set really fast fractions, and they all kind of cracked in behind. And I think he's. It was a bit 9-4 earlier in the week. I thought I suppose that he was kind of priced up on the assumption that perhaps they didn't think he would run. But I think he's a worthy favourite, and I think there's a slight argument he could run to, not quite to his best and still have a lot of these in trouble. There's a lot of ifs and buts and nearly done it's in behind, in my view, and I think he'll just run them ragged.
I often think when you've got some tipsters out there who always put up short price horses and they suddenly put in a big price one, you should take notice. And with you, Ed, it's the opposite, the other way around. When you put up a fav, I think people should listen because we know you're reluctant to do it.
Yeah, reluctant would be the word.
It's against the moniker. But yeah, absolutely 5-4 Gentleman to me, the one that Ed can't see past. Johnny, do you agree?
This horse cost 280 grand when they bought him from Arcana. So they obviously liked what they saw. I mean, if you're doing a process of elimination here, this horse is having his 6th run since the 5th of December. That's the only concern. This horse on collateral form is the certainty of the week. And if you backed him earlier in the campaign when he was conservatively ridden, I think you've been a bit cheated out of your money because he clearly needed to make the run. His jumping at Aintree was absolutely spectacular in the greater part of the race. I think he beat Edward Stone fair and square. Edward Stone basically holds all of these in the Arkle form. So he's about 7 or 8 lengths better than these on collateral form. I'm not saying he'll win by that, but you look at his main rivals in the race. Would it be a concern if he were taken on up front? Don't really see that happening because Willie Mullins has most of the field here. Wouldn't be Curse of Liam, not a chance he's going to make the run, and he's he's a soft finisher. So they'll hold him up. Blue Lord for me, I backed him. Couldn't get over why he was so big relative to Echoes and Rain at the festival last year. Of course, he flopped. Couldn't have him at all. I think his limitations are fairly obvious. Gentleman to me, you're basically gambling on him running his race. So if you're getting odds against about that, absolutely 100%.
5-4 best price as it stands. Looking at the way these guys talk about Gentleman to me, every chance that could shorten even further between now and Thursday afternoon. We've got a couple of races left. We have the 7:10, which is the Mares Handicap, and we've got the bumper in the last as well. No prices for either of these two, so not going to do them in any depth. But either any horses in either that you guys fancy or want to flag up.
I don't really. I think Minx Tiara is probably the one to beat in that Mares Handicap Chase, but she has had, I think, problems with her wind, so that'll be a concern as well. She's probably going to attack from the front. Sorry, I should mention the bumper as well. I actually did the spotlight for this, and the ground is going to be the issue here because James's Gate, he was third at Cheltenham behind the 2 superstars, but that was totally different ground. His debut was on heavy, so this is it's just that complete contrast. So I think the horse of Gordon Elliott, who actually ran behind the Music Drive, I think he'd be far better suited to the ground. And if there's a bit of value about him, I think you could back him each way. As much as he's about 12 lengths to find with him on Cheltenham form, I think it'll be totally different. There's definitely a question mark as to whether James Gate will perform that ground. But for a bumper worth 10 grand on the third day of the festival, this is a really, really hot race. It's great to see.
Absolutely. Ed, anything for you?
Just James's Gate in next year's Ballymore. Isn't it? It's a Mole Ryan horse. There's only one way that's ending up. So I see the Shrewdy's already hooved with the 22s. He's already 14-1. But yeah, I'm not adding much towards that. It's a good point with the ground, as you say, absolute chalk and cheese compared to obviously the form what that horse has produced in the Champion Bumper. Clearly, he deserves to be strong favourite, but 2 runs in absolute treacle. This is going to be a pretty lively surface by 7:45 in the evening, I'd imagine. So yeah, that would again be an issue.
Here's a collector's item. Just going to flag up another horse in that bumper as well. Joyo Machine, who was fancied by Andy, ran behind Facile Vega in Facile Vega's win at Leopardstown back in December, and then won on yielding ground at Navan afterwards, and obviously ran absolutely no race in the heavy ground at all. Although I heard was fancied to put in a decent performance if conditions hadn't gone against him, and replicating that.
We should mention Monbeg Park as well. I mean, this is trumpet, but kind of an inverse trumpet. I did the spotlights in the Racing Post the last day, and I think I put him in at 13-8 or 7-4. He went off sixes. So that's one of the worst spotlight prices I think I've ever done, and duty obliged. So there you go.
The anti-trumpet, yeah.
He's a very, very good horse, I think. He's and it's interesting they pitch him in here, one of these walk in the parks that beautiful pedigree, and he was like 4-9 at Gorn on his bumper debut. The ground was practically unraceable that day, and it's interesting they pitch him up here. It's only 10 days since Cork, so fascinating race.
Really interesting, and a couple of horses to follow in it as well. Look out for prices when they do come out. Should be sometime on Wednesday evening, you'd have thought. And that brings our day 3 of the Punchestown Festival preview to a close. We're going to be recording a Friday and a little look ahead at Saturday's racing as well straight after this. So do subscribe to the YouTube channel, Oddschecker's YouTube channel, and the podcast. You can find the podcast feed on any podcast platform at all as well. Do download the Oddschecker app for the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and the best tipsters, some of the best tipsters, I should say, in the game, including Andy Holding and his tips straight to your app every morning of racing as well. Thank you very much to both Johnny and to Ed, although they're not shot of me yet because we're going to be covering Friday in just a second too. So do tune into that. Hopefully a couple of winners in there today. And please do, as ever, gamble responsibly.